So it's like, just talk. And it's interesting, now that I'm thinking about it, I realize that it's going to be kind of funny to talk about. So I started, my voice kind of sounds a little weird. I've been screaming, as I talked about in yesterday's vlog. I've been screaming as a form of therapy. It's pretty fucking awesome. It's pretty awesome to discover your own voice in that sense, in a practice that brings you front and center with your own energy. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself in those kinds of moments. Yeah. So when I first started seeing my psychologist, it was great and everything, and back then my insurance ran out and I couldn't afford it, so I basically started journaling every single day, specifically with my non-dominant hand, because I wanted to challenge myself doing something difficult, as well as there was an aspect of it lighting up the opposite side of my brain, because that's literally how this works. If you use your non-dominant hand, if anything that you do with the left side of your body lights up the right side of your brain. Anything you do with the right side of your body lights up the left side. The left side of your brain. So I just wanted to challenge myself, do something difficult, and just go from there. But yeah, I was talking to my sweetheart this morning after I woke up about just kind of like the pursuit of like doing these videos, and it's fun because this is now more so a form of me just exploring my thoughts and feelings regarding like day-to-day life for me, and that's cool. And there are a couple things that I'm kind of thinking about and things that I'm feeling. Two things specifically that I want to explore. The first one will be this idea of pseudo-intimacy. And what's interesting about this is that this goes back to childhood, I feel. We learn, so this also goes into like shadow work and everything. For those that don't know what shadow work is, it's the reintegration of shadow aspects of ourselves that we learn to neglect or kind of like abandon earlier on to gain acceptance, validation, all that stuff from our family, specifically our parents. So we learn to like neglect and therefore like also just completely abandon aspects of ourselves. And pseudo-intimacy is this kind of idea of shame that we pick up very early on in our lives. And it's fucking crazy because today I actually found myself in a position of that, and I was like, oh, is this pseudo-intimacy then? And I realize it now, like, it potentially is that, and I don't want anything for myself to be like that. And it's kind of crazy because, you know, I think that to a very large extent what we want most is freedom. My sweetheart and I have been having this specific conversation around freedom because, you know, she was like, what do you want from me? And I was like, freedom. And she was like, oh shit, no one's ever said that. And I'm like, yeah, it's just the fact of the matter. I'm not here to control you. I'm not here to, you know, do this, that, and the other. We learned those dynamics earlier on. I actually want to talk about control because a lot of what we experience early on has to do with trust and control. Trust and control being opposite sides of the same coin. When trust is broken, when you are, you know, abandoned, whatever the fuck it is, your trust is broken, so therefore you learn to control, and you develop control dynamics and tendencies. To feel safe, of course. We do everything that we can to feel safe. But I just think it's really interesting how so much of intimacy is kind of like pseudo in life. It's halfway there. It's hey, I'm going to control how you see me, and I'm only going to tell you this much about myself. And yeah, that fucking sucks. Cuz that's not freedom. That's not real. I mean, yeah, you don't have to, I guess you don't have to tell everyone everything, or you don't have to tell someone specifically everything about yourself. What I do think is interesting is that my sweetheart, she knows more about me than my own psychologist does. And that's fucking huge. So, yeah, it's kind of like looking at this from afar. It's very interesting. I'm feeling like I don't want to be someone who is, you know, hiding things. I am very aware now at this point in my life, though, that my energy is not for everyone, and I will not give it to everyone, because I grew up the opposite way around. I grew up, with looking outside of myself for validation, for acceptance, because I grew up with a belief that I was actually inherently defective. Through many different things that happened early on in my life. And it's just interesting to reflect back on that and be like, oh, wow, never mind. There was never anything wrong with me. You were just projecting your fucking trauma onto me, and it led me to believe that I sucked, or that I lacked, or that I was defective. And it had nothing to do with me. It was always about you. Which, again, the whole idea of that's your shit, not mine. I'm utilizing that a lot more now, and that's fucking cool because that's powerful. Yeah, it's really cool to be in that space of awareness of seeing straight through clearly to the fine detail of what's actually happening. And that's something since the very beginning that my psychologist has urged me 100%. And I think I've put in I think that I've put in a good amount of work to be able to consciously see that for what it is. Really work with that mantra, that's your shit, not mine. Like, that'll change your fucking life. But learning to see people and what they do and what they say clearly for what it is, and realizing that, unless you're being a piece of shit to someone, what they have to say to you has nothing to fucking do with you. But what's interesting is that they're either going to say something negative, they're going to say something neutral, or they're going to say something positive. All of that which has everything to do with them and not you. As long as you're not doing anything to them, So yeah, that's that. Now I want to move on to something that I think needs to be talked about, because I hear all the time, people saying like, oh, you have all this time on your hands, you should be, doing this, you should be doing that. Again, projections. See this stuff clearly, people, My friends, it's in front of your fucking faces. It comes down to that, and it's that simple. The next thing I want to talk about, which is something that I think is very interesting, is this idea that, people are so focused on productivity hacks. They're so focused on more, do, like all that, like nonstop, like hustle shit, and I think it's very interesting because from what I've experienced recently, the most important thing that anybody could be doing, and everyone has this, everyone has trauma. That's just the way that it is. So the most important thing that people could be doing is healing. Why? Because when you heal, again, to heal is to experience the opposite of what you previously experienced. In order to experience the opposite of what you previously experienced, your energy needs to shift. It needs to be different. And it's going to shift. So, like, say, for instance, like, if you gain a new insight regarding someone and you approach them the same way, but that new insight is something terrible, like they fucking lied to you, they betrayed you, and you approach them the same way, oh, no, it's okay. No, it's not okay. No, it's not fucking okay. What the fuck do you think this is? And I just think that that's super interesting. So, why do I think that the most important thing that people could be doing is healing? Well, because if you don't heal, you're only going to live more of your life like you did the last bit of it. I mean, the past. The way that I look at my life, if I don't heal, which I am healing now, if I don't heal, the past, the next 30 years are going to look like the past 30 years. But now my energy is shifting, so it's not going to look that way. I'm setting standards, I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries are very interesting, and people around me are telling me that they don't like them. Too bad, not my problem. It's just simply their problem that they don't have boundaries. That's why they don't like them. They're not used to them. And so, if you can, like, take the time and, like, put yourself in the position of reflecting on your fucking life and doing something about it, an example, healing, it will change the dynamics of everything. You really need to take the time to heal, because it will shift your energy, and if you find yourself waking up at 60 the same way as you did 30, you fucking lost. It's just that simple. Like, that's it. You fucking lost. You need to wake up in a different space than you do. Like when you're decades older, you need to be waking up in a much different sense of being, a much different sense of, you know, everything. Because if not, in my personal opinion, that's a fucking life wasted, you know. And yeah, so I don't believe that getting married is the most important thing you can do. I don't believe that buying a fucking house, buying a new car, buying, you know, this, that, and the other. Invest in your fucking self, for real. You know, go into yourself. Introspect. See your fucking shit clearly for what the fuck it is. Recognize the fact that, no, life is not what you thought it fucking was. And fucking do the work and heal. It's that simple. I mean, it's not that simple because my sweetheart and I have been talking about how fucking exhausting healing is. We have these moments where we're just like, fuck, everything's crazy, you know? And it's crazy to kind of like be in that space of like, all right, well, this is what it is. Yeah, I personally believe that the most important thing that anybody can be doing right now at this point, at whatever point in their life they're at, doesn't matter if you're fucking 20, doesn't matter if you're fucking 50, heal. Your energy will shift, the way that you experience life will shift, your relationships will change, people will leave, good, they were never meant to be there, people will come and they will stay, wonderful, like, that's just the way that it works. But you need to renew, because if you don't, you're going to end up living a very bullshit fabricated life that has nothing to do with the authenticity of your, you know, your true frame, your true sense of being. That's just the way that it is. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for stopping in, my friends. Take care.